So welcome to the Data Friday. My name is Michael Olschimke. I'm the CEO of Scalefree. Running the session here, or we are running the session here every Friday, 11 o'clock Central European Standard Time. Sitting here in Germany, to allow you, the audience, to ask questions about data vaults, cloud computing, data mining, anything data related, essentially, MVP stuff, if you want to talk about that one. If you want to ask questions, you can either use the chat here in the client, you can to raise a live question, you can use the Q&A function in the client, you can just raise your hand, I would give you a voice, don't misuse this, or I give you a link to a form after today's session, where you can also upload your type in your question, upload some pictures if you want, some drawings, and it allows me to prepare a slide that I can show, essentially. But I'm used to live questions as well, so go for it. If we receive multiple questions, I will be cherry picking. If we receive no questions at all, I will talk about the cluster here, my little side project. Haven't done much yet, or in the last 1 or 2, 3 years, to be honest, but still a good running joke. And yeah, it's time box, so should make a good video essentially for online platforms like YouTube or whatever. So let me go for today's question here that came via the form. And all right, so this is about modeling demographic data. And let me just read this one here. Let me just move some stuff here. So I have a demographic data set from a national external source I would like to load to my raw data vault for use in proportion calculations in my business vault. Okay, so they need this as an input for business logic. The data set is population per region, year, age, and sex. How would you model this in the raw data vault? A reference hub for region, year, age, and sex with a link between them, holding the population number in a satellite. Yeah, you could do that. The thing is this. The reference tables exist. They exist in order to simplify your model, right? So that's the ultimate goal, essentially. So you want to use reference tables to simplify this. The model that you propose here is very close to a data vault model, right? With hubs, links, satellites. You could do that, but then where's the simplification, right? So now let's start with with the most simple option, and then think about this if it's maybe too simple, right? So the most simple option would be if you just create a flat and white table, load your demographic data in there, and call it reference table. Done. Just have these the region, the year, the age, the sex, and the population value as columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns, I believe. 5 columns in your data set, and it's done. Now, and you could use this, right? So you could just join the data in your business logic, and you're done. It would work. And that's essentially the basic idea of the reference table. And that's what we call the reference table, not the reference hub and the reference satellite. Now think about this. What if you want to capture changes? Well, that's a question, actually, because I believe the National Bureau, where you get this data from, will deliver you a new file, population records, once per year or something, right? So let's assume there's no updates. So you could easily argue that we're loading the data year by year into this black and white table, simple table, and it would work. But what if there are changes? Maybe, first of all, the National Bureau might make mistakes as well, or if the data provider is not as reliable as the government in this case, right? So you could easily argue, what if there's a change on the population value for a given region, year, age, and sex, right? That's a problem. And that's why, and the problem with the reference table, with the flat and white approach is, it doesn't support versioning of updates. So when there's an update, when there's a change in the population value, you have to update. I mean, run an update statement, right? You have to update the reference table, and that's a bummer. And that's why typically nowadays, we don't use reference tables, flat and whites, not anymore. What we do is we use a reference hub and the reference satellite. In the reference hub, you have the code. In the reference satellite, you have the description for the code. Let's say the population value. And when there's an update, when there's a change in the source data set, you introduce a delta, just like you would do in a data vault model. But it's still simplified because we don't hash. So there's no hash value for the code. And in your case, your code, well, I mean, I make some assumptions because I don't know your specific case, but I believe what I understand here is there's a population value per region, year, age, and sex. I mean, that's spelled here, right? And that changes year by year. So the descriptive value is the population value. That's the measure value, what you want to capture. And region, year, age, and sex are codes to some extent. What I would do is, if I keep simplification in mind, first of all, there's no business keys involved here, right? So region, you don't generate regions on a regular basis. Year is not a good business key by itself. Age is not a good business key, and sex is also typical reference data. But instead of creating multiple hubs for these cases, so I'm not looking at 4 hubs here, I will look at only one hub. One hub with the codes region, year, age, and sex. That's my reference hub for the demographic data set, whatever you want to call it. And then a satellite with the population values when they change over time. Because this value here, this descriptive data, is identified by those 4 codes. And that's why I put them all in the same hub. And that gives me my simple model. Yes, well, it's simple. It's good enough for the case at hand. You want to capture the data. It's in the raw data vault. And then you can essentially use it in your business logic. That's my goal. Two entities and you're done. The problem is if you add a link, if you have 4 hubs here, 4 reference hubs, and you add a link, you also need a satellite on the link, what you write here. But then you also might need to have some effectivity satellite. And it's not a simple model anymore. You could also, I mean, what's the value of having 4 reference hubs and a link and a satellite, at least, maybe an effectivity satellite, over a data model with hub sync satellite, which would have the same number of entities, essentially, right? If everything here would be a business key. The only difference is you don't need hash values of these codes. That's it. But other than that, you have the same join effort and so on. So my simple model, all the 4 codes in one hub, in the reference hub, one satellite with the population values, and you're done. And then just use it in your business logic. You just join it based on the region, year, age, and sex codes, which you most probably have in your data anyway, right? In your raw data vault satellite for, I don't know, for customers, let's say. I don't know. No, that makes no sense. But whatever. So you have these 4 elements inside your actual data as well. And you can use them to join directly, by the way, into the reference satellite. Because we said in a reference satellite, the code of the hub is identifying the satellite. So it would be anyway in the satellite as well. Right? So all these 4 elements end up in the satellite as well because the code is there. That's the other side story. So you end up in a flat and white structure, but you can capture changes because of the load date involved. That gives you the change history on your data, essentially. And the hub, the reference hub is required because the reference hub gives you the granularity of your data, of your reference data. So don't omit the hub as well. Yeah, that's I would say the longer answer. So again, simplify your model. Don't keep it too simple because typically most clients, they want to use the yes, could you please? So most clients, they want to use the they want to capture changes in reference data. There's a question here from Sandra. Could you please draw the hub with region, year, age, sex inside? Yes, maybe not drawing. Let me just find out how. I'm not sure about the names which I would use, right? Maybe population. And then there would be the let's do PK. PK is I believe region. I remember 1 second. So region, year, age, and sex. Okay. Yeah. So you could argue if there's a loaded involved in this reference hub or not, and a record source. Why not? Doesn't hurt. So LDTS, SRC, I believe. So you have those. Let me increase this a bit. But they're not part of the primary key, right? So come on. Okay. And then we have the satellite. Comes up. Reference satellite, let's call it population data. So primary key remains the same, but in addition, I need the load date, right? And then I have the population amount. Let's call it population amount to make it clear. And the record source should be it. Yeah, that's it. That's a simple model. And you could argue, why do we need the hub here? Because it has the same code here. This is more or less like a flat and white table, but there's a granularity issue involved here. Here you have one record per change on the data, right? Which means that you have a granularity problem when you want to produce a type 1 dimension, for example. You must do a grain shift all the time. Well, it's small data as well, but for this purpose, we have the hub. The hub gives us the granularity of the original incoming data set. And then I have the latest record here based on the load date. The highest load date is the latest description for this record in the reference data. That's the basic idea. So it's all about granularities. That's why we have two tables, two entities. And this one captures all changes. And this one captures the original granularity from the source data set, which we need to produce type 1 dimensions or anything else. That's the idea for the reference table here. And that will be the design. Super simple, I agree. Well, not too simple. It can capture changes. And with this satellite, I can use this satellite here now in my business logic. I just join it based on these codes and retrieve the population amount based, or the latest population amount based on the load date from the satellite, essentially. That's the basic idea. And that's what we would do. You could argue, well, if there's multiple join columns involved, multiple columns that I have to join, what about performance? Well, the thing is, these codes are relatively small, right? I bet there's a region code involved, 2 or 3 characters. There's a year involved, well, 4 digits, integer value, small and something. You have small, maybe not small, but then you have an age. You have that could be a small. Then you have a sex, a 1 character or some Boolean value, something like some small stuff. So joining those is not that expensive, because in the end, it's also about the size of the join condition. What's the overall size? And that's still smaller than the hash value. Hash test, essentially, right? That's 32 characters or 16 bytes. I bet it's still, if you organize it well with the right data types, it's still smaller than 16 bytes. 16 bytes, right? So that should work. So that's the solution, essentially. All right, so let's go back to the slides. Sorry for the drawing. I should prepare my my tablet next time. Come on. Last 2 slides. So if you have a question like this, use this form here, sfr.ee/dbfriday. That's where you can find essentially the form where you can upload the question, type in the question, upload some drawings if you want. One person just uploaded a Word document, works as well. I can get the images from there as well. And also check out scalefree.to/webinars, where we have 2 more webinars on a monthly basis on Warescape and DBT. That's where you can meet the data vault or the tool experts at Scalefree, essentially, because I'm not the biggest tool expert. I know the basics. And if you have an urgent question that you want to get resolved as quick as possible, also use the Data Innovators Exchange. We just renamed it. It was formerly known as Data Vault DVIC, Data Vault Innovators Community. But it's now, because it should be more generic, more going beyond Data Vault, it's called Data Innovators Exchange now. Sign up for it. If you have a sign in for the previous platform, they still work. But check it out. That's where you can essentially ask a question in a forum style community and get answers from the Scalefree experts and from the Ignition data experts back in Australia, and from other experts as well. And might be also interesting for you guys. Then thanks for joining. Hope that you have a nice weekend, and then see you next Friday, guys. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.